32 years old, and sitting across from her ex-husband in a sterile conference room that smelt of expensive leather and betrayal. Elena Marsh signed the final divorce settlement with a pen that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. 7 years of marriage, 3 years of trying to save it, and it all came down to this, a stack of legal documents that gave her ex-husband, Derek Marsh, the 4-bedroom colonial house they had bought together, the 2 cars, the joint savings account, and the investment portfolio his father had helped them build. What did Elena get? A rusted storage unit key and $8,000 in cash, barely enough to cover first and last month's rent, on a studio apartment. Derek sat beside his attorney, a shark in a tailored suit named Gordon Fletcher, looking bored and checking his Rolex. Beside Derek sat his new girlfriend, Vanessa Chen, a 26-year-old marketing executive who wore designer heels and a smug smile. She wasn't supposed to be at the settlement meeting, but Derek had insisted, and Elena's underpaid legal aid attorney didn't have the energy to fight it. Elena had no money for a real lawyer. She had been a stay-at-home wife for 5 years while Derek built his commercial real estate business. And when she finally went back to work as a dental hygienist, she made $42,000 a year. Derek made $500,000. But according to the prenuptial agreement Elena had signed when she was 25 and in love, she was entitled to almost nothing. Attorney Fletcher slid a single key across the polished mahogany table. Per the settlement agreement, Mrs. Marsh receives full ownership of the storage unit located at 4725 Industrial Park Road, Unit 237. The property taxes and rental fees are current through the end of the month. After that, they become her responsibility. Derek let out a short, cruel laugh. Good luck with that, Elena. It's full of junk from my dad's old construction company. Broken tools, rotting plywood, maybe some asbestos. I was going to pay to have it cleared out, but hey, it's all yours now, Vanessa giggled, reaching over to squeeze Derek's hand. Babe, you're so generous, giving her a whole storage unit. Elena's face burned with humiliation, but she refused to cry in front of them. She took the key, her hand trembling, and shoved it into her purse. Her attorney, a tired woman in her 50s named Linda Ochoa, gave her a sympathetic look, but said nothing. The deal was done. Elena stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor, and walked out without another word. Behind her, she could hear Vanessa whispering something, and Derek laughing. The sound followed her all the way to the elevator. That night, Elena sat on the floor of her new studio apartment, a 400-square-foot box in a building that smelled like mildew and fried food. She had no furniture yet, just an air mattress, a suitcase of clothes, and a growing sense of rage she didn't know what to do with. She pulled the storage unit key out of her purse and stared at it. Derek had been so eager to give it to her, so quick to write it off as worthless. She thought about his face during the settlement, the boredom, the dismissiveness, and then she thought about something her mother had told her once. When a man is too eager to give something away, it's because he's hiding something. The next morning, Elena called in sick to work, borrowed her co-worker's pickup truck, and drove to the storage facility on Industrial Park Road. It was a sprawling complex of identical beige metal units, surrounded by chain-link fence and security cameras. She found Unit 237 at the back of the lot. Tucked between 2 larger units, the padlock was old and rusted. It took her 3 tries to get the key to turn. When the lock finally gave way with a heavy clunk, she pulled the rolling door up. It shrieked on its tracks, and the smell hit her immediately. Dust, motor oil, and something faintly chemical. The unit was dark, lit only by the morning sun filtering in from behind her. Elena pulled out her phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the gloom, illuminating the contents. The unit was packed with junk, stackers of warped plywood, rusted metal shelving units, boxes of old power tools covered in grime, paint cans, some of them leaking, a pile of concrete bags that had hardened into useless lumps. It looked like a construction graveyard. Elena felt a wave of disappointment crash over her. Of course it was worthless. Of course Derek had screwed her one last time. And she was about to leave when her flashlight beam caught something. In the back corner, a tarp heavy-duty, dark green. covering something large and rectangular. It was newer than everything else in the unit. The fabric still intact, not rotted like the rest, Elena climbed over a pile of 2x4s and pulled the tarp back. Underneath was a car, a pristine, cherry-red, 1967 Ford Mustang fastback. Elena's breath caught in her throat. She ran her hand over the hood. The paint was flawless. Not a scratch, not a dent. She opened the driver's side door. The interior was mint condition, black leather seats, original dashboard, everything intact. This wasn't junk. This was a collector's car, and Derek had never mentioned it, not once. In 7 years of marriage, Elena's mind raced. Why would Derek hide a vintage car in a storage unit and then hand her the key like it was nothing? Unless he didn't think she'd ever actually come here, unless he thought she'd just abandon the unit and let it go to auction when she couldn't pay the fees. Then he could swoop in, buy it back for cheap, and keep the car. Her hands started shaking. But this time it wasn't from sadness, it was from anger. She pulled out her phone and started photographing the car from every angle. The exterior, the interior, the odometer showing only 14,000 original miles, and the VIN number stamped on the dashboard. Then she started going through the rest of the unit, more carefully. She opened boxes, dug through toolboxes, and in a dented metal filing cabinet buried under a pile of drop cloths, she found something that made her heart stop. File folders, dozens of them, bank statements, property deeds, LLC formation documents, all in Derek's name, but none of them had been disclosed during the divorce. There were accounts at 3 different banks she'd never heard of, property titles for 2 rental homes in Florida, an LLC called Marsh Holdings that owned a commercial building downtown, and cash deposit receipts, totaling over $340,000 over the past 4 years. Elena sat down hard on the concrete floor, her hands trembling as she flipped through page after page. Derek had been hiding assets, significant assets. He had cried poverty during the divorce, claiming the business was struggling, that they had no savings, that he could barely afford to keep the house, and the whole time he had been funneling money into secret accounts and buying property under a shell company. Elena pulled out her phone and took pictures of every single document, every bank statement, every deed, every receipt. Then she carefully packed the folders back into the filing cabinet, and exactly as she'd found them, she walked out of the storage unit, pulled the door down, and locked it. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She sat in the borrowed truck for 10 minutes, staring at the photos on her phone. Then she called Linda Ochoa. The attorney answered on the 3rd ring, sounding distracted. "Elena, I told you the settlement is final. There's nothing more I can do." Elena's voice was steady, cold. "Then I need you to file a motion to reopen the case." Linda sighed. "On what grounds?" Elena smiled. "For the first time in months. Fraud. I have evidence Derek hid over $500,000 in assets during discovery, and I can prove it." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then Linda's voice came back, sharp and focused. "Don't touch anything else in that unit. Don't tell anyone what you found. Meet me at my office in 1 hour. A pause. "We're going to bury him." Linda Ochoa's office was located in a converted brownstone that had seen better days. But when Elena walked in carrying a banker's box full of documents, the attorney's eyes lit up like she'd just won the lottery. Linda cleared her entire desk with one sweep of her arm, sending her lunch and a stack of unrelated files onto the floor. She didn't even seem to notice. "Spread them out. All of it. Show me everything." Elena emptied the box. Bank statements from 3 institutions, Citibank, Wells Fargo, and a small private wealth management firm called Sterling Trust. Property deeds for 2 rental properties in Tampa, Florida, purchased in 2019 and 2021 under the name Marsh Holdings, LLC. Articles of incorporation for the same LLC filed in Delaware, with Derek listed as the sole managing member. And the most damning piece of all, a detailed spreadsheet handwritten in Derek's blockig writing, tracking cash deposits and transfers totaling $487,000 over 4 years. The columns were labeled business income, off books, rental revenue, portfolio dividends, asset protection. Linda picked up the spreadsheet with hands that trembled slightly. She read it twice, then she looked up at Elena, her face pale. This is a smoking gun. This isn't just non-disclosure. This is active fraud. He created a shell company, funneled marital assets into hidden accounts, and lied under oath during discovery. She paused. If we can authenticate this, we can void the entire settlement. Elena felt her throat tighten. Can we? Linda nodded slowly. We're going to need a forensic accountant to verify the documents, and we'll need to subpoena the banks to confirm the accounts are real. But Elena, she leaned forward, if this holds up, you're not just getting a better settlement. Derek could face criminal charges for perjury and fraud. Elena sat down, her legs suddenly weak. How long will it take? Linda was already pulling out her phone. I'm calling Marcus Chen. He's the best forensic accountant I know. He owes me a favor. If he can move fast, we can file an emergency motion to freeze Derek's assets by the end of the week. She paused, meeting Elena's eyes. But I need to warn you, the moment we file, Derek is going to know you found the storage unit. He's going to come after you hard. A beat. Are you ready for that? Elena thought about Vanessa's smug smile, Derek's laughter, 7 years of being told she was dramatic, too emotional, not smart enough to understand business. She met Linda's gaze. Let him come. 3 days later, Marcus Chen sat in Linda's office surrounded by laptops, spreadsheets, and empty coffee cups. He was a thin man in his early 40s with wire-rimmed glasses and the focused intensity of someone who lived for numbers. He had spent 72 hours cross-referencing every document Elena had found, running bank account numbers through databases, confirming property ownership records. When he finally looked up, he was smiling. It's all real. Every account, every property, every deposit. He leaned forward. And here's the beautiful part. He spun his laptop around to show Elena and Linda a complex flowchart. And Derek didn't just hide assets. He committed tax fraud. The rental income from the Florida properties was never reported to the IRS. The cash deposits were structured to avoid reporting requirements. A pause. This isn't just a civil matter, this is federal. Linda leaned back in her chair, a predatory grin spreading across her face. How much are we talking? Total marital assets, he concealed. Marcus tapped his calculator. An conservative estimate, $620,000 in liquid assets and real property. If we include the appreciation on the rental homes, closer to $750,000. He looked at Elena. Under your state's equitable distribution law, Elena is entitled to at least half. Plus, we can argue for punitive damages given the fraud. A beat. She could walk away with $500,000, maybe more. Elena couldn't breathe. She had signed a settlement for $8,000 and a storage unit. Linda stood up. I'm filing the motion tomorrow morning, Marcus. I need your full report bound and notarized by tonight. Elena, she met her eyes. I need you to stay away from that storage unit. Don't go back. Don't touch anything. And don't contact Derek. A smile. Let him find out in court. The motion to reopen the divorce case on grounds of fraud and perjury hit the county courthouse at 9:07 a.m. On a Friday morning by 10:30, Derek's attorney, Gordon Fletcher, was on the phone with Linda, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. This is harassment. My client disclosed all assets during discovery. You're wasting the court's time. Linda put him on speakerphone so Elena could listen. Really? So your client disclosed the Marsh Holdings LLC? The 2 rental properties at 847 and 923 Sunset Boulevard in Tampa. The accounts at Sterling Trust with a combined balance of $240,000? There was a long and deadly silence on the other end of the line. I'll need to consult with my client, Linda smiled. You do that, we'll see you at the emergency hearing on Monday. That night, Elena's phone started ringing, blocked number. She didn't answer. It rang again and again, 12 times in 2 hours. Then the text messages started, Derek's number. This is insane, Elena. You're making a huge mistake. Call me. We can work this out. Then another. And my lawyer says you're claiming I hid money. That's ridiculous. That storage unit was junk. I gave it to you because I felt bad for you. Elena deleted every message. Without responding, an hour later, her phone rang again. This time it was a number she recognized, Derek's mother. Patricia. Elena almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Patricia's voice was cold and clipped. "Elena, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you need to stop this immediately. Derek has been very generous with you. You're embarrassing yourself." Elena took a slow breath. "Patricia, did Derek tell you he hid over $500,000 in assets during our divorce?" There was a sharp intake of breath. "That's absurd. Derek would never, the bank statements say otherwise. I'll make sure you get copies when they're entered into evidence." She hung up on Sunday night, and 36 hours before the hearing, Elena was in her studio apartment going over her testimony with Linda when someone started pounding on her door. Hard, aggressive as, "Open up, Elena! I know you're in there," Derek's voice, and loud enough that her neighbors would definitely hear. Linda grabbed Elena's arm. "Do not open that door. Call the police." Now, Elena pulled out her phone, but before she could dial, Derek shouted again. "You think you're so smart? That storage unit was a trap, Elena. I wanted you to find that car. I wanted you to think you won." A pause. "But you have no idea what you just did." Elena froze. Linda's face went pale. "What is he talking about?" Derek's voice came again. Almost conversational. "See that Mustang? It's stolen. Reported stolen in 1985. If you claim ownership, you're admitting to possession of stolen property. My lawyer's already contacted the police. A beat. So go ahead. Take me to court. Let's see who ends up in handcuffs." Elena heard his footsteps walking away, then the building's exterior door slamming. She looked at Linda, and her hands shaking. Is he telling the truth? Can he do that? Linda was already dialing her phone. "I'm calling Marcus. We need to verify that VIN number right now. If that car is stolen." She paused. "We have a major problem." Marcus Chen called back at 11:47 p.m. Just as Elena was spiraling into full panic, his voice was calm, almost amused. "The VIN checks out. The car is not stolen. I ran it through the National Insurance Crime Bureau database, the National Motor Vehicle Title Information System, and 3 private databases." A pause. "That Mustang has a clean title, registered to Derek's father, Howard Marsh, from 1983 until his death in 2016. Then it was transferred to Derek." He laughed softly. "It's 100% legal. He was bluffing." Elena felt her entire body sag with relief. Linda, who was still sitting on Elena's floor surrounded by legal documents, let out a sharp laugh. "Of course he was bluffing. He's panicking. He knows what's coming tomorrow." Marcus's voice continued through the speakerphone. "But here's the interesting part. I pulled the title history. That car is worth between $85,000 and $120,000, depending on condition. If it's as pristine as Elena says, a beat. We're looking at 6 figures." Another pause. "And it was purchased during the marriage with marital funds. It's a marital asset. Derek hid a $100,000 car." Linda was grinning now. "Add it to the list." She turned to Elena. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow, we're going to destroy him." The emergency hearing took place in Judge Catherine Brennan's courtroom. At 9 a.m. on Monday, Elena sat at the petitioner's table with Linda, her hands folded tightly in her lap to keep them from shaking. Across the aisle, Derek sat with Gordon Fletcher, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. Vanessa was not in the courtroom. Apparently, even she had the sense to stay away from this. And Judge Brennan, a stern woman in her early 60s with silver hair and reading glasses on a chain, reviewed the motion in silence. For a full 3 minutes, then she looked up. "Mr. Fletcher, your client signed a sworn financial affidavit during discovery stating he had disclosed all assets, correct?" Fletcher stood. "That's correct, Your Honor. However, the assets in question were business holdings that my client reasonably believed were separate property." Judge Brennan's eyebrow arched. "Reasonably believed?" She picked up a document. "This is an LLC formed in Delaware in 2018, 3 years into the marriage, funded entirely with income earned during the marriage, holding properties purchased during the marriage." A pause. "On what basis would that be separate property?" Fletcher opened his mouth, then closed it. "Your Honor, I would need to consult with my client further." Judge Brennan's expression hardened. "You've had 3 days, counselor." She turned. "Ms. Ochoa, present your evidence." stood and nodded to Marcus, who had been sitting quietly in the gallery. He approached the bench with a bound 47-page forensic accounting report. Your Honor, this report details $620,000 in assets Mr. Marsh failed to disclose. We have bank statements, property deeds, LLC formation documents, and most damning, she paused for effect, a handwritten ledger in Mr. Marsh's own writing, tracking hidden income and labeling it, quote, asset protection. Judge Brennan took the report and began reading. The courtroom was silent, except for the rustle of pages. After 5 minutes, she looked up at Derek. Mr. Marsh, stand up. Derek stood slowly, his jaw clenched. Did you or did you not create an LLC called Marsh Holdings during your marriage? Derek's voice was tight. I did. And did you or did you not purchase 2 rental properties in Florida using marital income and hold them in that LLC? Yes, but did you or did you not disclose those properties during divorce discovery? Derek glanced at his attorney. Fletcher looked like he wanted to disappear. Your Honor, I invoke my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. The courtroom erupted. Judge Brennan's gavel came down like a gunshot. Order! She leaned forward, her eyes blazing. Mr. Marsh, this is a civil proceeding. You've already testified under oath that you disclosed all assets. You don't get to invoke the Fifth now. A beat. Answer the question. Did you disclose the Florida properties? Derek's face was red. No. Did you disclose the Sterling Trust accounts? No. Did you disclose the 1967 Ford Mustang valued at approximately $100,000? Derek's voice dropped to almost a whisper. No. Judge Brennan sat back, her expression one of pure disgust. In 20 years on the bench, I have rarely seen fraud this blatant. She looked at Linda. Miss Ochoa, I'm granting your motion. The settlement is void. We're going to trial, and I'm ordering an immediate freeze on all of Mr. Marsh's accounts pending full discovery. She turned to Derek. Mr. Marsh, I'm also referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for possible criminal prosecution for perjury. You are ordered to surrender your passport within 24 hours. A pause. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down. Derek turned to Elena, his face twisted with rage. You're going to regret this. Every single day you're going to regret this. Linda stepped between them. Mr. Marsh, you're now under court order not to contact my client. Say one more word, and I'll have you held in contempt. Derek stormed out, Fletcher scrambling to follow. Elena sat frozen, unable to believe what had just happened. Linda squeezed her shoulder. You did it. You actually did it. The trial took 4 months. During that time, forensic accountants tore through Derek's finances like wolves. They found more hidden assets, a boat, registered in the Cayman Islands. Stock options he'd claimed were worthless, but were actually worth $180,000. A safety deposit box containing $40,000 in cash and his grandmother's diamond jewelry, which he'd told Elena had been stolen. The total came to $891,000 in concealed marital assets. Derek's attorneys tried everything. They claimed Elena had stolen the documents. That was dismissed when Marcus testified the storage unit was legally hers. They claimed the handwritten ledger was forged. Handwriting analysis proved it was Derek's. They tried to settle. Linda advised Elena to refuse. The final judgment came down. On a cold morning in March, Judge Brennan awarded Elena $520,000, representing her equitable share of the hidden assets, plus punitive damages. She was also awarded the Mustang, the storage unit, and her legal fees, which totaled $43,000. Derek was ordered to pay everything within 90 days or face contempt charges. He was also indicted on 2 counts of perjury. His real estate license was suspended. Pending the criminal case, Vanessa left him. 3 weeks later, 2 years after that, Elena stood in the showroom of her own classic car restoration business, a 3,000-square-foot facility she'd purchased with her settlement money. The 1967 Mustang, fully restored and gleaming, sat in the place of honor in the front window, with a small plaque beneath it. This car is not for sale. It is a reminder that the truth always surfaces, no matter how deeply it's buried. She had hired 4 employees, all women, all rebuilding their lives after divorce. Business was booming. Classic car enthusiasts came from 3 states to work with her. Derek had pleaded guilty to 1 count of perjury to avoid jail time. He was sentenced to 2 years probation, 200 hours of community service, and a $50,000 fine. His real estate business collapsed. Last Elena heard, he was working as a property manager for someone else's company, making $60,000 a year. She never thought about him anymore. Not with anger, anyway. Sometimes with pity, mostly. Not at all. On the wall of her office, and framed next to her business license, was the original rusty storage unit key. Beneath it, a quote she'd written herself. They handed me the key to my prison, thinking I'd never open the door. Instead, I found the key to my freedom and his lies. A pause. Some days, the universe has a sense of humor. Sometimes the thing they think is worthless is the thing that destroys them. And sometimes the woman they underestimated is the one who was paying attention all along. Because the most dangerous thing you can give an angry woman is time, evidence, and a reason to dig. Derek handed her all 3. He just didn't know it until it was too late.